Okay. Is everybody able to see and hear us now? This is very new territory for me. Quite a lot of the technical setup that was intended did not work out.
Is it closer to you, Randolf?
Yes, even closer, because the wide format camera did not work out. But now I also believe that there is an issue. Okay. Is everybody able to see and hear us now? This is very new territory for me. Quite a lot of the technical setup that was intended did not work out.
Is it closer to you, Randolf?
Yes, even closer, because the wide format camera did not work out. But now I also believe that there is an issue. Okay. Is everybody able to see and hear us now? This is very new territory for me. That's a very simple problem what I had.
Is it a rookie's error?
Yes, it's all rookie's errors. Everything that's happening, including the picture not being live. Because right now it only shows this preview picture here. Don't ask me why that is.
If you want to show your picture, it's the bottom left.
Hello, Kim.
Start video. How's it?
Excuse me, eating supper.
Oh, there's Kim up there.
Yes, she is here. But the problem is the stream is live. I'm not sure what they can hear. Yeah, the viewers are dropping down. Okay.
Do you want me to get on the group and just say this?
Yeah, that would be good. We are gonna.
So, is your video working, Randolph?
No, it should only work on the live stream, on the YouTube live stream. But it's very strange.
Kim, you disappeared.
Wait, now I think the video should be showing. And
Who's back?
I do believe it's now working. This is Randolf and Brad at Beerhouse. We are dialing in a few guests that right now sadly are not able to, where we are not able to show the picture itself, but that we might be able to change that in the next few minutes. And Brad is from ILS, who is, I think, Integrated Labor Consultants.
Integrated Labor Solutions.
The labor lawyers who we at Beerhouse have been working for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Yes. And in the background, you should be able to hear Mike Sett, who is a restaurant marketing consultant, and also Kim Whitaker, who is Corona case number 41, or I think, but one of the very early ones, and also owner of a hotel here in Cape Town. Yes, so I think we are, very much this is an impromptu situation. I don't think anyone was able to prepare for what we are going through right now.
Absolutely not.
This is unprecedented, a black swan event, whatever. I mean, we've all seen the news, and we're here to get a few facts together, answer a few questions, and trying to give a bit of an overview. And I must say, for me, this thing became very, very real from like a thing that happens elsewhere and might not affect us too much. When in a WhatsApp group, I got that is full with entrepreneurs from all over from all over South Africa. I got a message from Kim. I read that message that she's actually, for the last 48 hours, she's now been in home isolation, and she's been diagnosed to be infected with the coronavirus. And now, for me, it got very, very real in that very moment. And I would like to ask Kim, yes, how was that experience? Tell me about it. How did it happen?
How's it? Thank you, Randolph. Thanks for having me. So, I was in Germany for a trade show. I run a company called Once Travel. We have hub hotels in Cape Town and Johannesburg. And I was in Berlin for a travel show. And just before I flew, the big show was cancelled, but I was still due to be talking at a smaller event. So I continued my travel plans. And by the time I landed in Berlin, the second event had also been cancelled. Fast forward 10 days and I arrived back in South Africa. And as I landed, the school basically informed me that that anyone coming from overseas has to self-quarantine with their children for 14 days. I went to go fetch my kids from school and I was like, this is crazy. I can't, are you serious? Do I have to do this? I wasn't in Italy, I was in Germany, and they sort of, insisted that we take the precautions and that we self-quarantine. So we went almost immediately into self-quarantine. I did pop into the office briefly. And about 48 hours later, after I'd done the test, I got the result that I had tested positive. From that moment up until now, I've had very mild symptoms. Perhaps the most remarkable was a dry cough. And the last 5 days, I've had no sense of taste or smell. But I haven't had a fever. I haven't had anything else. So, 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, when I was in Germany still, I feel like I had seen the future. And, from the beginning of the week, people were questioning, like, why are we canceling events? 3 days later, they were like, okay, now we see why we need to cancel events, no gatherings of 100 people. The next day it was no gatherings of 50 people. The next day it was like, okay, we're going to have to close down our tourism business. And days later, tourism businesses that have been open for 20, 30 years were just closing and laying off staff. And, it was a pretty hectic time. So I came back to South Africa sort of resolute to tell everyone what I'd seen, and then sort of chaos struck in my own world, and we had to go straight into self-quarantine. So we've been running the business from our home now for the last 2 weeks with 2 young kids who might just pop in at any given time. And it's been obviously very overwhelming at times. Our staff in Cape Town and Johannesburg have been amazing. As I mentioned briefly, because I popped into the office, my entire head office team had to go into self-quarantine as well. So we actually, in fact, have had no management on site for the last 2 weeks. And the team has just rallied up tremendously. Obviously, there's a great deal of doubt regarding the future and what the future of tourism is. But I'm very fortunate to be on a number of WhatsApp groups with people from around the world who are a few weeks ahead of us, and I can sort of prepare myself for what's going to come, which is great. Yeah.
If you don't mind, Kim. Sorry, Kim, beg your pardon. I just need to understand how did it work with regards to the Department of Health when you were diagnosed? Did they kind of really manage the situation closely? Did they kind of cocoon you? What sort of directives did you get from the authorities, so to speak, as being a COVID patient? Absolutely. Thank you very much. So
they've actually been really great. So they call every single day. They've also been calling my contact list every single day. I think at the beginning, I was maybe like the 15th case in the Western Cape. So in the beginning, I was, the head of the department was calling me. And then as more and more cases came, I guess, and I was healthy the whole way. I mean, there wasn't much to talk about. I sort of got moved on to different healthcare workers, all of them doctors, all of them very professional. It was a positive experience, let's put it that way. They were prepared to come and drop off a thermometer, a mask. I didn't need all of that, but they did come and drop off masks for me. So when I was preparing food for my kids, I could wear a mask. So it was a good experience. I suppose now, I just actually got my discharge papers about 20 minutes ago. So I've been formally declared healed, which is good. But I still can't leave home for another week. I can't leave my house for another week.
Okay. And what about your kids? Because I believe in the past they were not getting tested.
They're not getting tested. No, they're not getting. They don't have. They don't. First of all, it's a very unpleasant test. I wouldn't want my kids to go through it unnecessarily. They literally stick an elongated earbud like up your nose. It's not very pleasant. And they just simply don't have enough tests. So because the symptoms have been mild and because they have not had any symptoms at all except for exhaustion, they're probably not going to. They will not test them. Basically, they just they assume that if they would have got it, they would have had it by now, and they haven't got it, so they're not testing.
But I mean, that's also a way to artificially keep the numbers low, possibly.
Look, I don't think it's that, that we haven't had a death yet. There's always that correlation between the number of deaths and the number of cases, which tells you whether a country is ahead of the testing curve or behind. So I honestly don't think it's a transparency thing. I think it's literally an access to resource thing. I think that, what's the point of testing, two kids and one guy who have no, what is it? It doesn't really help if they are positive or not. They're healthy. They don't need medical resources. They don't need to take time away from healthcare workers and whatever. So, there's a train of thought in Germany that says that they should, if there's one person who's tested positive in a family and they're going to self-isolations together, what the Germans are now doing is that they're counting the family members as positive even if they haven't been tested. So, the German numbers have been quite high, but they only changed to that strategy, I think, fairly recently. And this is just off an article that I read on a German newspaper. Yeah.
Sorry, Kim. What? You obviously can't pinpoint the exact moment that you got infected, but what is the sort of timeline between when you believe you got infected and the time that you started showing symptoms? You personally, obviously.
So, the timeline is anything from 2 days to 14 days, and so 2 days to 14 days is how long the window is. I'm almost 100% sure it was while drinking schnapps in my favorite après-ski bar in Austria, because I went on a little ski trip after Germany, and Austria's cases are sky high. So I do suspect it was around about then. My symptoms were the worst on the days that I got back. So, I really think I'm at the tail end.
Were you also skiing in Ischgl?
The famous ski resort.
I was skiing about 30 kilometers from Ischgl.
Oh, wow. Okay, I only heard of Ischgl being like the hotbed of European coronavirus infections. And I actually got one other friend who also got infected there, also came back to South Africa, and was then case number 160 or so, because he came back with symptoms, he got tested, he was negative, and only when he went to hospital, so he was quite a serious case, he would then get a positive test back.
Okay. Yeah, look, the false negative is common in the coronavirus, which is why the rush to get tested, personally see the point, because someone can test negative like twice, and then the third time they test positive. So in countries where they're repeat testing, like Singapore, they just keep testing every week. Everyone gets tested. It'll be like negative, negative, positive. Okay, you know you're positive, but like, you can if you're not symptomatic, you can be shedding the virus, you can be incubating the virus, you can still be transmitting the virus, but you can still test negative. So the problem is that it's not like HIV or something like that where you for sure or you don't know. So you can test negative and still be positive.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Which is quite, and I think that's something important to explain to our staff, because, the first thing that a lot of staff are asking in the industry is, okay, let's get this under control. Where can I get tested? And it's not that easy. And the other thing is, of course, when you're working with tourists, they want to know, like, can tourists get tested before we let them come into our establishment? And the answer is no.
Okay. Kim, I mean, you are obviously in a very special situation. You have a virus, you've gone through it, you've now healed, but also you've got a business in the hospitality industry. Aside from your personal infection, and can you quickly run us through what has happened there? When did you see a dent in your bookings? When did things start to change, and how did you react?
So I came back on that Wednesday, and I went straight to my office, and I was like, guys, we need to act swiftly. It's like, the beep is hitting the fan. Like it's gonna get real, like, quickly. And I said, have we had any cancellations? We had one cancellation. By the following Monday, I think we had, I don't know, 300,000 or 400,000 rands cancellations, and then it just went up and up and up. So it came in thick and fast. So we've got a reservations team of between 4 and 6 people, and we're just not equipped to handle that amount of inquiries. So we set up an autoresponder saying, if you're emailing us about a cancellation, please click on this form here, which led them to a Google form which they had to fill out in order to apply for a refund. And then we also set up a staff fund pretty quickly, within the first day or two, and then sort of implored people, instead of asking us for a refund on your deposit, would you please consider donating to our staff fund? We'll give you the credit for later use, but right now what we need to be doing is looking after our people. And that's been kind of encouraging to see, okay, not everyone has done it, but even past guests have come forward and have pledged, or actually like paid us, 200 Rand, 500 Rand, 2,000 Rand towards our team, who they know and love through past stays. We're now in the next week going to go about processing those refunds. And what I'm currently working on is trying to speak to the tourism ministry. Thank you very much. There we go. Just got a little thing there. Trying to talk to the tourism ministry about. So what they passed in Italy is a law saying that that tourism, hospitality, events companies can issue a credit note or a voucher for future events, etc. But for now they're not issuing refunds. So you'll see most of the big airlines, etc., doing the same thing. And the idea there is that, especially for non-refundable rates, we understand people are disappointed, that they haven't been able to come on their holiday. But on the same breath, it's like massive amounts of cash flow that's flowing back out the country, where South Africa sort of, as we see now, doesn't have the full resource to look after everyone in the same way that Scandinavian countries and European countries, etc., are able to. So that's been quite an interesting message, and we've found that guests have been.
And now you're breaking up on my side. Until now it was perfect, but now it's gotten wobbly.
Oh, there we go.
Can you just? We just lost you for a few seconds, I believe. You were saying something just about, I think, Scandinavian
the difference,
countries.
European.
So what we notice, what I'm observing in sort of Europe, America, etc., is that the government is able to provide some sort of buffer for the next few weeks and months. So whether it is an unemployment benefit or temporary temporary solutions, it's usually about, let's say, 80% of what your normal salary would be, or 70%, which is obviously quite different in the case of the UIF. Is even the new the new COVID-19 UIF emergency fund that's come into play. It's not, it's very short. It's the numbers aren't 80% of your salary, and so we've tried to communicate this as openly as possible to our guests and say, look, would you be prepared to accept a voucher for future travels and allow us a few months to support our staff?
Okay, I mean, I think that sounds like a good solution for the hotel industry. Obviously, the restaurant industry deals much less with reservations and advance payments. But thanks for these insights. And I mean, how maybe on your staff side, I know you are very strong on culture. What is the one thing that you believe helped your staff deal with it?
Well, I think that let me just say that we're very, very fortunate, and there are a number of small key facts within this complexity that allows us to be like this. First of all, we've come off the back of summer, and in the hotel industry, we always sort of hoard in summer and keep all our savings because winter generally goes down. So had this been at the end of winter, it would be a completely different story. Second of all, if it had happened in end of February, it wouldn't be as good as, like now we're in a better situation, because March, even though it was a bad month for us, was still it still is a generally quite a good month. So in terms of the hotel industry, we were in a semi-fortunate position to have like a little bit of savings. So we would normally rely on that savings to see us through the quieter winter months. Now we're trying to look after our staff as much as possible, and try and, everyone's panicking. Privately they're panicking. This virus is scary to many people, and there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. So in terms of culture, the message that we've been trying to send, like strong and hard, is like, your safety is our priority, and this is not business as usual. In fact, we closed today, but we will try. We will be looking after our staff for as long as possible. So if we've come up with a 5-month plan for them, and staged out each stage. We've structured it around load shedding, so a similar concept. So like load shedding has got like stage 1 to stage 6, and you never really know what's coming next. It could be stage 1, 2, 3, and we've staged it into similar stages so that we have a little bit of flexibility depending on what happens with the business. Because we don't know, it could last 6 months, could last 9 months, could last 1 month. And so the different stages have been communicated clearly, and now depending on what happens, we're going to stay very open with them and say, okay, guys, now this month we're on stage 3, which is like extended short time. Or actually, in fact, now we've got in a contract, we've got a contract in to accommodate people in distress. All right, now we're on stage 1 again, which is 90% of normal, whatever. So we've got all these different stages, so that they know exactly, what's going on, and they know that we don't know what's going to happen. Like we've been very upfront with our whole team, but we're going to do our best to try and sort of make the best of this situation.
Okay, I mean, I know you did quite a lot of media work now, talking about your situation on radio and on News 24 and so on. Did you also I believe it mostly covered your private life. Did you also write about your the way how you interacted and established this stage system with your team. Is that also something that you already wrote about?
Sorry, the internet cut out here. What was that? Sorry.
I was asking if I saw you wrote and spoke on video quite a lot about your personal situation, but did you also publish or talk about this, staging situation and how you support your team through the situation? Did you also write about that somewhere that we can maybe share that with people tuning in today?
So I'm actually writing about it today because we only made the announcement yesterday. We have our own labor advisors, and it was important to us that they were also there amongst the staff. And so we only made the announcement yesterday. Obviously, we have a board that had to approve the decisions we made. So while we've been working on this for about 2 weeks now, there were a lot of checks and balances we had to get in place before we could make any public announcements.
Okay, great.
I chose to speak out about my experience to try and demystify like what was going on. The reactions that I got were quite mixed in the beginning. I really felt like I had HIV, like as if I had done something wrong, and people were like, oh, that's and so I took a stance to write about it because I knew that, and it's a matter of time before we all know 4, 5, 6 people. And my general observation was that once people knew that I had it, they like woke up, and so that's why I started writing about it. Also, just to explain that for 80% of people, it's so mild, like it's nothing to be fearful of. But we all know we've got to look after our old, the frail and the elderly and the immune compromised, and that's the biggest threat, not feeling sick yourself.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, look, I think the amazing thing about you is, just like George also said in the chat, the way how you put your team first. I really find that that is strong leadership for me. It obviously not every business is in a position to be able to afford that, but I think it's great what you do, and please also write about the business side of things and share it with us, because I believe it's something we can really learn a lot from. So thank you very much for sharing with us.
Awesome. Cool, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kim.
And Fabio is he is on the call. If he runs hospitality in Italy. So Randolph, if you would like to ask him some questions,
yes.
Please.
Is he on the call already right now? I don't see him on the group chat.
No, he's on the live stream. He's watching the live stream.
Okay.
So
right.
Send him the link on his. Send him the link.
Yes, I would love to dial him in a little bit later, because I first thought, let's look at the status quo. I know quite a lot of people came in with lots of labor-related questions, and I mean that's also my personal experience. Obviously, is now, we are sitting here at Beerhouse. But while usually, this would be a decent crowd in here, maybe it's a little bit dark. We haven't switched on all the lights, but, it's empty in here, as you could hear. And that is because we decided to call it quits now 2 days earlier. We spent the day cleaning and putting everything into storage. But the reality is that we looked when it got so serious. So like, what is it now? 10 days ago, on the 15th, we obviously looked at how cash flow disappeared, and we started with crisis plans. I basically started the very moment that Kim sent me that message. And I was really working with the whole team to build a kick-ass delivery offering and taking some old ideas in terms of to boost our delivery takings, because reality is Beerhouse is not a particularly strong food brand, and I was talking to my buddies overseas, particularly in the US, where I'm in a WhatsApp group with 12 other restaurant owners from North America, and they were all having different stories. Some of them closed their restaurants when the lockdown came, but quite a lot of them also started delivery offerings. And I was quite positive, that with Pizza House and Burger House, we'd be able to, at least reach a break-even point. We started making lists of, who can we keep in the kitchen, who would we need to put on layoff or put on hourly work instead of, monthly. But then out of nowhere, and I was literally on my way to Beerhouse Tiger Valley to announce our plans and the delivery initiative after the State of the Nation address of Ramaphosa, which I think was quite strong and led to good, it was decisive actions, and the lockdown was inevitable. And but then at 11 o'clock, suddenly, the Restaurant Association is circulating this draft, which sounds drastic, but obviously they are very close to the action, and we are now being told, okay, there's not going to be delivery, and none of what we expected would happen. So that's when we basically were like, wow, that's worst case scenario. We didn't plan for that, but we knew what to do. And the end result is that the meeting in Tiger Valley started half an hour later, but instead of saying, a staged setup with most staff being kept, we were now suddenly having to close completely, because it doesn't leave any leeway for any kind of trade. I think the only possibility would be if you converted your restaurant into a supermarket right now, which really is not our expertise and something we can realistically do. So I think what I just explained is something that everybody out there, every restaurant owner now experiences. I mean, even hotel owners can't continue trading anymore. I circulated SA Tourism, white paper where basically hotels are also given 3 days, 4 days to shut down, or to be converted to what's it called? Isolation stations.
Right.
And now our WhatsApp group was obviously quite busy on everything labor law.
What if I told you that there was a special?
Sorry, Mike.
Guys, I'm going to check out.
Yes.
Or-
Thanks, Kim.
Bye.
Now.
So that brings me into the picture
Yes,
somewhat.
exactly.
So just a shout out to George. George, I'll do my best at making myself a little bit more clear. I know George very well. Just on a week ago, give or take, I mean, we were still giving advice to our clients to look at essentially reducing working hours, scheduling staff proportionate to the needs of the business, and working down on a spine of exactly what you need per business, per property, and as equitably and fairly giving all your staff an opportunity to work, and then essentially getting this short time arrangements. And generally, I mean, I must say there has been almost unilateral, across the board, there's been acceptance of the situation as it was a week ago. Here and there we had engaged with unions, and they were sort of begrudgingly accepting of the situation, but they would always want to have their say and engage a little bit more and try and squeeze as much out the lemon as they could, and that's absolutely normal. And then, as you say, the announcement of the lockdown came along, and that took whatever decision making we had to try and do the short timing arrangement. and threw that whole model out the window. And with the hospitality industry, the situation was particularly dire. Again, the feedback that I get from our clients and members is that there's been acceptance from the staff, as long as they can see that essentially that the UIF claims have been processed as fairly as they can, or expedited that as best as could be expected under the circumstances. The sort of feedback that we get is people sort of resisting and talking about, well, my leave, my accrued leave, for example, cannot be used for Corona. In fact, there's a voice message of an attorney giving this sort of advice on national radio, or one of the radio stations in any event. So while I'm on that topic, I mean, section, I think it's 20, subsection 10B of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act gives the employer, it's the employer's discretion to send the staff on leave. So a lot of employers are going out there and immediately eliminating the leave deficit as best they can. And then from
but
there,
obviously that leave would now be paid leave.
Yeah, so that's paid leave for those instances where employers can afford it. And a lot of employers can't afford it. They work to a situation where they can afford to send some staff members. They've got money aside for some staff members to go on leave, but certainly not all of the staff members. And there's very few employers out there who A, have the luxury of doing that, and B, and it's I see it is giving some sort of indication to staff that they'll, even though they're not expected to be at work, that they'll still supplement their income by whatever it is, 50, 60, 70% over the next month of April. So those are really generous gestures by some employers who can afford to do it. It's really testing times to see how resilient this industry is. And I know you and I had a personal wager. I was expecting that this would largely be resolved within the next 2 weeks, I think I said. But the forecasts, since we had that wager, are not looking nearly as good as it was when I sort of initially made my comments. But again, the main stumbling blocks, as far as we can see, and I really hope this is not a stick of dynamite that we're dealing with, is that it's this processing of UIF claims. The Department of Labour, to their credit, is doing the best that they can. I personally see little reason to give too much criticism to them under the circumstances, but they are putting guides out there to assist employers as best they can. And I would really recommend those people listening to do two things. One is, if you don't have it already, is to go and get yourself a Twitter account. It just takes a few seconds to set up a Twitter account and link yourself up to the CCMA's Twitter feed, the presidency, and the Department of Employment and Labour, I think is what they're called now, their Twitter feed, and get your information from the source as best you can. There's a lot of disinformation out there, and I think it's like a pebble in a pond. If you want to get the information as it breaks, and not be on the edge of the information, because you're going to get a lot of disinformation out there. That was the first point, and then the second point is, as best you can, try and follow the ENCA news feeds. There's a live stream on YouTube, and it's a bit laborious because the ministers are coming on, and the cluster ministers and the rest of it, and there's a lot of platitudes, and there's a lot of let me call it superfluous information out there that we don't need. But in particular, I'd suggest that you keep alert out for the disaster relief fund. The announcements are going to be made about that this evening. Exactly when, I think it is at 9 o'clock, but I'm open for correction on that. So we're going to get some more clarity on this new vehicle that they've designed. So it's over and above the UIF, the current UIF fund that people are making use of. This disaster relief management fund that's going to be set aside for that. because the information is so scarce or scant, should I say, I'm not really comfortable in, I'll be stepping into the realms of speculation talking about it. So again, I think we'll be in a better position to be able to give you more information, certainly during the course of tomorrow. Am I right in saying, Randolph, I mean, if there are any questions, they're more than welcome to ask questions on the feed.
Yes, I think there was Trevor was asking in the exact procedure to register staff for UIF or business for this TERS thing. And that is also, what I now kind of, I think UIF, I know the basics. TERS is, I think, a brand new thing or something that wasn't used
temporary
in the past.
employer relief scheme. So it's a little bit of a morphing from what they had in the past with essentially what the CCMA created a model several years ago whereby companies in financial distress could essentially ask the CCMA to intervene to assist in sending staff, basically taking the staff and putting them through a training layoff process, which was with their income would be subsidized by one of the skilled services seaters, and through the Department of Labour. There's a whole scheme that was set up a few years ago, and it just didn't really take on. I dealt with it once or twice, and I found it to be quite a cumbersome process. This new one, this TERS, came into effect towards the end of last year, and I understand it to effectively require the employer to create a plan of action whereby they can convince the CCMA that there's a turnaround strategy. There's a panel that's been appointed to give consideration to the turnaround strategy. And if they believe that there's merit in your case, and you've paid up on UIF contributions, and you're above board, so to speak, they assist in either channeling you towards a panel of experts to assist you with your turnaround strategy, or dealing again through the services CETA, and or allowing you to dip into a fund where you can remunerate your staff up to a limit of 17,500 Rand. There's more information. There's actually what they call an easy to follow guide that was released over the weekend on TERS. Again, if you follow the Twitter feed, you'll be able to get a very easy to download a pamphlet on it. The CCMA, with their new announced complete lockdown, I understand that you can still submit an application. The application process is dealt with in the guide. One can do it online, and there's a form that one has to fill in. I believe it's pretty self-explanatory. The exact content of the turnaround strategy, I can't give advice on that. Obviously, depends on situation to situation. What other questions do we have there? Yeah, so as from almost 7 o'clock, Minister still not announced anything on National Disaster Benefit Fund. That's through my colleague Leon Trout. That is correct. Thanks, Leon. I'm not looking at the Twitter feeds right now, so thanks very much for that update.
Yeah, I think this is really kind of like and you can tell that for once, government is definitely working. Yeah. Things are changing daily. They are not necessarily working in the way and towards our expectations, I believe we can say, because they really are like, kind of like cracking down on more and more of our civil rights, restricting it more.
Yeah, look, I think there's a number of philosophical questions, existential questions, ethical questions, and constitutional questions going to flow from out of the situation. This is legislated. The disaster management legislation was promulgated, I understand, several years ago, and then it's put a mechanism in place for situations like this. But it is what it is. And again, I cannot stress enough how important it is to make sure that you get your information from the source. We're getting information such as that UIF forms can be submitted online, that there's a Dropbox facility available. But until we get that, again, from the source, we're very reluctant to simply announce it to people. But as we get clarity, we're going to do that. And I see George has asked us to provide updates, the newsletters from the day before. Thanks, George. I'll discuss it with my colleagues, and I'm sure that we can assist in that regard. Sorry about the lighting in the studio. We're in an empty restaurant, so we're doing the best that we can. And there is an
saving
echo.
electricity.
Saving electricity.
Yeah. And
so, by the way, just it makes sense for me just to say this. I think it's stating the obvious. We understand that the CCMA is closed for until at least mid-April. Those cases that were on the roll are simply being postponed and cancelled. I foresee the possibility of cases being held on public holidays and Saturdays like that before. If there's any other specific questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Okay. So Brett is going to be here for, hopefully a few more minutes. If there's more labor-related questions coming up.
Absolutely.
We now have Fabio, who dialed in, also voice only. Fabio is from Italy and is a hotel owner. Fabio, can you quickly tell us what is the situation in Italy? And your
First of all, we are a hostel owner as Kim, and we have a hostel in Rome, and we were about to open in for the 1st of April another hostel in Milan. So me and my wife, we live in Milan, and the situation is where all the crisis is more developed. And as much concern the business, as I shared the graph with you, the reservations start dropping since the first cases that started in Milan. And it has been a constant loss of business until the 20th of March, where we have 0 people in the hostel at the moment. So we haven't completely closed because we have the hostel close by to a hospital. We decided to give free rooms for the nurses and doctors that doesn't want to go back home with the risk of contaminating their family. And so we are running just with minimal terms, just one receptionist to check on the building and renting for free the rooms for nurses and doctors. So the situation at the moment in Italy is slightly getting better. Better means that the cases are not growing as fast as before anymore. But we think we will need at least until the 20th of April until we have removal of the lockdown as much concerned bar and restaurant. We also have restaurant and bar and room, so these things affects us on all our businesses. And the one I'm more concerned is, of course, the hostel, because any scenario that we are thinking of we'll consider that people will be limited to travel, and we will have to rely on internal traveling Italians only. And let's say that Italians are not the best customer for internal, not the best customer for hostels, because they usually go in hotels when they travel internally.
Can I ask there, Fabio, what is the situation with regards to restaurants? I mean, we all understand that there's this ultra restrictive measure being placed upon restaurants. We also understand Italy is what, the second or third biggest rate of infections in the world, if I understand. No, it's for us.
Yeah, we're now number 2 after China.
Yeah.
The highest number.
We are highest number, and so restaurants has been kind of weird because we do have an Italian trattoria,
Yes.
and they usually works with tourists. And we also have a bar that is connected to the hostel that also works with locals. So since the 1st of March, so from the beginning of this pandemic, we had lost business in both restaurant and bar, but we were still coping. Was the only thing that will stream revenue still in the business. And at a certain point, the state changed law 1 week after 1 week. At the beginning said that you can only have the bar/restaurant open as soon as you can guarantee 1 meter between one person and the other. And this cut our business of 50%, but which was still working on. And then decided to shut down completely. And this was around if I'm not mistaken, was on the 11th of March. So the first 11 days of March, we were running at 50% and then decided to shut down completely. And the only thing we could restart soon is the delivery. But unluckily, we were renovating the kitchen of the bar. That is the only one that does delivery food. And our thinking is to reopen the delivery on the 3rd of April. That is something possible to do. So I believe that this is important for whoever has a restaurant to consider a limited menu where they can do delivery to just keep the business running even at minimal terms.
So, and you said, when is delivery opening now?
I'm sorry?
Delivery is already open or will open now?
Okay, for our delivery is not open because we were renovating the kitchen when this thing happened, but the delivery is open. So all the other restaurants, they are doing delivery. And actually there is some kind of protest through Deliveroo and Glovo and all the other delivery system, because they're not providing masks to the delivery boy, and it's kind of dangerous for them to go around the city and into the houses of people without the proper protection.
Fabio, so just repeat if you don't mind. When they announced this lockdown, did they give a timeline? Did they specifically state that it was a complete lockdown until a particular date?
So at the moment, the lockdown is until the 3rd of April, but they are already saying that they're going to postpone that. But I believe that in a democracy we're not like China. They cannot just say you're going to be locked down forever. So they don't want to say it, but as soon as they don't get better numbers, they will not reopen the lockdown now. So at the moment, they gave us the date of the 3rd of April, but there are rumors that are saying already that won't happen until the 20th of April.
So 6 weeks total, pretty exactly 6 weeks of a complete lockdown for you.
But Fabio,
yes, between the 11th and the 20th. Sorry?
No, I was going to just say that if I understand you correctly, the Italian government is kind of sort of taking it day by day. If they see that there's some of these restrictive measures might be lifted, they're prepared to do that and sort of without giving unnecessary hope to the South African restaurants and hotels. I'm just wondering if you see that sort of flexibility from your government.
I believe that that's what is going to happen. So actually, what I think is going to happen is that they're going to give more ability for people to go out, considering always some limitation. For example, for Milan, for the first 10 days, we had a limitation where restaurants only could be open and not bars. So if you were seated and served, you can stay open. And if you are instead a bar where people just can go around the place, you could not stay open. So you can only keep your place running and open only if you had people sitting on a table and served. So what I'm gonna do is slowly reopen some of those restaurants and bars with those limitations. And if the cases go back up, they're gonna reclose again. So there's gonna be some kind of elastic there, up and down.
Yeah, so it's within, by the sounds of it, I mean, it's worth continuing lobbying, through FIDASA and seeing if we can't get more engagement and more these restrictive measures somehow lifted somewhat over the next. But again, we don't want to put unnecessary hope into people's minds.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, and Fabio, I think Italy has quite a good system of like a good social security system of covering your people with unemployment, a payment or not.
Yes, we are a social state, and the problem here is for how long they can support the system. But at the moment, they said that they can guarantee 9 weeks of pay to our employees. Of course, one will not be 100%, will only be 80% of their wages, with a maximum of 1,200 euros per month. So if any of your employees used to have a contract for 2,000, he will always get a maximum of 1,200. And what they are also talking about is giving us the possibility to don't pay the taxes on employment. So a way to regain business will be that we will only have to pay the staff the net without the taxes.
Oh, wow. So net equals gross when it comes to the salary.
Yes, and this is already in place until end of May.
Yeah, and it's most likely going to get extended, I believe.
Yes, yes, that's the point. We, as an association of hotels and hostels, we're asking for at least the whole year to have the only net payment for the staff in order to don't fire anybody. So that's the point. You shouldn't fire anybody and at least keep everybody in.
Okay, I mean that's sounds positive. And generally, what about your other expenses? I mean, have you been successfully negotiating with landlords, or what's happening? I mean, how many do you see businesses going out of business?
Okay. So it really depends by the size and how well you are prepared for this. Luckily, Rome building, we own half of it. So we only pay 50% of rent on the building. And we were able to negotiate a freeze on the rent for at least March and April. And we are going to rediscuss the rent for the whole year. Otherwise, we're going to rethink part of the business, because that's the most important part. I believe that in hospitality, we have to think out of the box and also think of our other streams of revenue, because we don't think that until the end of the year, there will be at least foreign traveler coming into Italy.
Yeah. And do you know anything from the restaurant industry? Like, does the restaurant industry, do they
So
have
there
success
is,
with delivery? Do they see like they are able to cover cost at least from income from delivery? How do other industries generally look like? What other industries are affected? Are people back in the factories and so on?
So let's start from restaurants. I believe that restaurants with the delivery can just pay few bills, because as we already as everybody knows, is not the big core of the business, the delivery, depending by the restaurant you are. But anyway, the good thing of the state, apart from the wages of the employees, as much regard renting the rents of the restaurants, they gave a 60% credit in taxes on the rent. So let's say you pay a 10,000 euro rent per month, you can deduct from taxes the 60% of it, so 6,000 euros. And this means that you only pay 40% of the rent for March. They haven't been extending that yet, but they might. As much regard the other business affected, only this Sunday, the government stated a complete lockdown, also on factories that are not connected to primary needs. So this means also factory of cars, factory of, I don't know, anything that is not directly necessary for the production of food, or the nursing, the hospitality business, and anything that is connected to the emergency. There's been few of the categories of employees that have been protesting because they don't want to work in those crises at the moment because they are scared of their health. But this is an ongoing thing. But it's pretty hard to think a complete lockdown of a country, considering that we are the second manufacturer of Europe. So it's pretty hard to understand how you can completely close the whole system.
Well, we can tell you from Friday on how that feels, because what we seem to have is like a complete lockdown. And it was just when Brad arrived and the stream was about to start that we got the news that they are closing down the liquor stores. So the only thing that is allowed
full trade in liquor is now banned.
Yeah.
And you can't even walk the dog, is the quotes from our minister.
And that is, I think, the most extreme measure, that they now say, you can't basically leave your house to just walk the dog or run or, walk in the park, which I personally believe is incredibly extreme. And, where I already say, I foresee for South Africa that, the people dying from suicide, that number will be higher than the people dying from the coronavirus, because I believe, if you are not able to leave your house, and obviously lots of people, living in shacks and so on, this is really like a very, very, very extreme measure, and goes beyond the lockdown that we've seen in any of the other countries. So, yeah.
By the way, my Corona is a negative, yeah.
Yes. I also always say, it's a beer that is, people speak about it way too much. It's overrated. We don't need it.
You can get much better.
Yes. I've got a much better beer here. Thanks, Jack Black. Yes. Thanks for the stock deal and so on. Shall we share, drink out of one glass?
Yeah.
No,
no, we
not.
Can't do that.
We are way too close here anyway. But Fabio, thanks so much for kind of sharing. I was asking if anyone still got questions.
By the way, George, this is for George if you're still online. Yes, we will indeed update. You would be a FEDASA member. FEDASA is doing regular updates as well. But if anybody needs that update, by all means contact me. I think the majority of you are on the WhatsApp group, the hospitality WhatsApp group, and my number's over there. If not, I'll put my number out there anyway. It's 079-8966-781. I think, and I'll do my best to assist where I can.
Okay, guys. So if you don't have any question for me, I'm gonna cut off.
Yes. Thanks so much for joining, and I'm wondering.
Thank you, and stay safe.
Oh, we will. Same to you. All the best to, on the way to recovery of your business. Hopefully soon.
Ciao, Fabio.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. And now over to Mike. Mike, sadly
Greetings.
people can't see the camera. I didn't manage to get that going, but they will be able to hear you. Do you quickly want to introduce yourself and your take on where we are?
Okay, name is Mike Said, little company called Mike Said What. Been in the industry for about 30 years. In fact, I've been in every part from waiter all the way through to the end. Cut my teeth as marketing manager at Mug and Bean, now the small consultancy. And the last 2 weeks I've worked very closely with Wendy from RASA on what's happening, being a voice between government, between her, between my clients. We are where we are. Should I carry on?
Yeah, maybe tell us, where are we? Why is government so insistent on shutting down? Yeah, I mean, not only the public life, but even the private life.
Shutting down an
impacted.
entire industry.
And are they aware of all the ripple effects of unemployment and so on?
Okay, right now government has one single priority, and that's to try and keep this virus outside of the townships. I don't know how many of you have visited townships. I have had the opportunity on many occasions to go visit them. You need to understand the life, what goes on there, the lack of sanitation, the lack of water, the lack of medical supplies, to understand that there is one single priority, no matter what it costs, to try and keep this outside of the townships. You might think it's extreme. Even I do think it's extreme. I am a single father who more than likely will not see my daughter for the next 3 weeks. But then I remind myself that I have a roof over my head, I have a toilet, I have a bathroom, I have some food in the fridge, I have running water, I have electricity, I have internet, so I'm able to talk to all of you right now. And I am one of the top 0.5% in the country. Sadly, like everyone else, I am going to have to suck this up. I won't be running, I won't be cycling, I won't be visiting shopping centers. I won't be ordering takeout. I'm not exactly sure why the government has chosen such harsh measures, and possibly everyone has another different take on it. Restaurant owners think they should be allowed to do takeaway, and bookshops should be able to do this. And the bottom line is they've made a rule, and we are where we are right now. I believe, whether you agree with me or not, our job right now is to see this out. Not to look for loopholes, not to try and fight it. We're past that time at the moment. We're actually at the time right now where we have to find some way to get through the next 21 days ourselves. And my gut feeling is that 21 was a really nice number. It sounded manageable, but I got a feeling we're in for at least 4 or maybe even 5 weeks. So you can brace yourselves for that. Because we are where we are right now, what I want to say to restaurants is, You've got at least 21 days on your hand right now to think about things really, really carefully. And what I think you need to do is to have a look at where we're going to be in this post-apocalyptic dawn that will suddenly be upon us. Because when we talk about the restaurant industry, we're going to be talking about 2020 BC, which is before Corona, and then 2020 AD, which is after the Depression. People are asking me every single day if I think that things will go back to normal. I need to tell you right now, that depends on your definition of normal. Because if you think it was normal to employ this many people under one roof, I'm not sure. Was it normal that we signed such onerous leases that people are still reeling from? Was it normal that we've allowed 2 delivery companies to control the market so tightly that they were making more money than we ever could? Was it normal that we chased turnover instead of customer loyalty? Was it normal that we had so little control over our own businesses? And so the list goes on. My suggestion to each one of you is that you think really long and hard about the kind of business you want to return to and the kind of industry you want to return to, because that's what's going to shape your life for the next year or so, and maybe well beyond that. I know already that some restaurant owners are going to walk away. Some sadly will have no choice and go back to it. But many of you are going to go back to rebuilding the pieces and starting again. If insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, then surely this is the time to stop, assess and plan so we can break that cycle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 5 points that I believe we really should address during these 21 days together so that we can maybe see this new dawn together. First of all, to all the restaurant owners, I urge you, I beg you, I plead with you, join the Restaurant Association today. The Restaurant Association is not about awards and monthly newsletters. It's about having a strong body with even stronger voice. I was in almost daily contact with Wendy. In fact, I can tell you, we spoke so many times a day that we could only be having something on the side. Her commitment to this industry has been unbelievable. Let's work together, build this organization, because cometh the hour, cometh the woman. This woman stood strong for us. And if we ever need her again or an organization, now's the time for us to build it. Number 2, start treating your restaurant like the business that it is. Take back control from your managers, from your staff, and from your accountant. So many people woke up to the realization that this is a real business with millions and millions of rands at stake. Suddenly, numbers mattered. Food cost, stock control became critical. The turnover to rent ratio was vital, as was the turnover to staff ratio. In fact, these numbers were always vital. We were just too busy to notice. We need to take back control and learn how to manage those numbers even more carefully. Number 3, think long and hard about your lease renewal. By now, all of you know which landlords stood by you and which have not. This is a very onerous document you're signing, and it's time to bring the turnover clause to the front and center again. Sure, you may pay a little more when things are running well, but we have all just discovered that there are no guarantees, and we need some kind of backstop and some kind of lifeline. Number 4, we need to stand strongly and collectively together when dealing with the delivery companies. It's time to hand this collective bargaining over to RASA and let them negotiate a deal for the industry and not just for one group. It took many years and plenty of back and forth to get the banks to come down from 5% credit cards, but they came down tremendously with enough pressure. We simply do not have the 20% to give away on deliveries anymore, and we need to stand firm on that. And then number 5, learn to build customer loyalty. The old expression that nothing costs more than an empty chair hit most operators right between the eyes. Who would not have given away free tap water with ice or some extra lemon at no cost just to have customers in their restaurant? Hell, who wasn't discounting Call and Connect just to see customers again? We're going to have to drop our short-sighted view on immediate turnover and start looking to build loyalty. These are just some of the things. We need pre-opening plans, marketing plans. All I can urge you all is if you head off to isolation, just give this some thought. And by the way, I'm on the WhatsApp group. I'm a WhatsApp away. I'm happy to talk restaurant for hours, share war stories. All I want to say to all is stay safe, stay indoors, and use these 21 days to build a better business for yourself.
Sure,
Thank you.
Real James, Mike. I think you and I are probably going to have a separate forum to debate the issue about centralized bargaining. And I can understand where that argument's going, and I'll happily have that debate with you one day when the time is right. But for the rest of it, I think I can't agree with you more.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of homework that you gave us just now, but it resonates with me because ultimately, I believe you're building a brand, a story, and something that people need to buy in, as in like subscribing and becoming a follower of your brand. And you can't just survive by being a burger place that has a great location in a mall or somewhere where there's enough foot traffic. But yes, I think this would go very, very far. And before we started this call, you were telling me, you can't really assist in the crisis right now, but you can give advice on, how to rebuild. And I think that is definitely worth discussing in more detail at a later point.
Yes.
Right now, we are very much, everybody, is in crisis mode. Everybody will be, is concerned about the lack of cash coming in and the clusterfuck of a lockdown ahead of us.
Yeah, I think one of the key themes of what Mike is saying is we got to look at the new dawn, and there is this 21 days is should be seen as a glass half full, that as best we can under the circumstances. And while he was talking, I was just thinking to myself, well, there are opportunities out there for staff, for example, to use the time. And I know not everyone's got access to Wi-Fi. I fully appreciate that. But there's an enormous a reservoir of great online courses, hospitality-related courses that are on NQF level, that are internationally recognized, that are either for free or cost very little. And, you know, employers should be thinking about how they could be sending that sort of information out to their staff to use this time productively. Vodacom, for example, if you got the Vodacom app, you can shake it, go into the app and you can shake it. And one of the things that you can actually win, and I've won one myself, is free online courses. And if you shake it enough, I've done it, I've won two. There's no reason why employees cannot immerse themselves in new courses that, as I say, and I know that people are really hanging on to the last cent to be able to really upskill themselves over this period of time. That's with obviously the restrictions that are there with financial restrictions present.
I think what I'm interested is that restaurant owners upskill themselves as well.
Absolutely. You know, I think there's also opportunities of looking retrospectively. I think that, now you can look with your figures over the last few months and understand why your food costs were so high. You know, why are staff probably manipulating your point of sale systems? What sort of loopholes are in existence in your point of sale systems? A lot of these point of sale companies, GARP, what's the other, Marcross and Pilot and so on, they're still available. There's no reason why you can't contact them and ask them to look introspectively at your system and find out what sort of loopholes you've had. You know, I've known personally restaurants that have lost hundreds of thousands of rands and actually had to be closed because of staff stealing.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, well, yeah, there you
You
go.
know what, Brett, there are so many things that need to be covered. There's so many questions. As I said, I've been writing about it for years and years. A lot of it falls on deaf ears because people feel, well, I'm doing okay. I don't want to rock the boat too much. But this is a wake-up call for the whole industry. You need to, each one of us, step back and say, what could we do better when we get a second chance? Because we're going to get a second chance. Let's just not do the same thing again.
Yeah. Mike, you were breaking up a little bit just now, and I also think we should be kind of coming to a close. This is fascinating thoughts and a discussion I want to continue. Today, I think, we are all fighting for survival right now. We are trying to fight the fires that have come up, just in the last 24 hours. Every day is a new day, is a completely new situation, I find, and there's a lot of things that I already observed. So I'm always saying, I've got to the urgencies right now, but I'm already thinking about the new normal that is going to come at the end of the tunnel. And personally, it resonated with me. There was a friend on a WhatsApp group who said, also a business owner who was talking about the number 3. So 3 months of chaos and this craziness of that situation. And what are you going to do after these 3 months are over? Yes, we should celebrate. We should find a reason to celebrate that we are back in a new normal, but we should also understand and plan for that new normal and prepare ourselves. For me, I realized there is a lot that I can do, that I can learn myself while I'm, by myself for 3 weeks. Video editing and live streaming is one of it. And today, I definitely didn't have enough time to prepare for that. But it is something, in the next stream, you will see it's going to be much better than today. Because the skills are out there. There's friends that are also idling and not doing their regular work right now in Germany. who I can ask help me and advise me a little bit more. And then, yeah, there will be a lot that we can do to train our staff. There is currently a data offer 50 gigabytes for 180 days for 500 Rand, which for half a year of practically unlimited data is really, really a great deal. And if you now thought about, giving that to your staff members or subsidizing it or something like that, that can already open the world to them. Plus, I believe we'll see more and more good quality internet offers being zero rated so that you can access them for free. Most networks already have something, and there's actually quite a lot of content. And for me, it is very significant to communicate with my team. So I'm going to try to communicate with them nearly every day. I spoke to them and said, I will make sure that everything we are sending them is verified information, not fake news, because that is a massive danger. And my goal is to give them a bit of orientation, not only when it comes to our business, but also when it comes to, really what we as a society are going to do. Because I want them to come back and understand that my company did the most they could given the circumstances. It will not work if the government is not doing its part, but right now it does look, I might not agree with what they do, but it definitely is decisive leadership, what we are being shown. And hopefully, and possibly, and I found Mike very insightful there, they are doing the right thing. We might just see it from a very privileged perspective. So yes, I hope.
So I've done a little bit of research on free or nearly free online courses that I've collated. And
Sorry,
Sorry, beg your pardon. I was saying that I did a little bit of. Yeah.
No problem. Can I just say good? I need to sign off.
Yeah.
I have posted the transcript of what I said on the group. If anyone wants to chat about it, they're welcome to contact me.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Mark. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for dialing in.
Sorry.
Bye-bye.
So for the rest, I just wanted to say that I have done a little bit of research and collated some online courses, which I'll just post on the group. There's various apps and courses that I say that are really free that you're more than welcome to access and use for your staff.
Yes. Okay, great. And creating a resource where all of that comes together is definitely something that I believe this group that we created should turn into. So something that shows the way forward for hospitality owners in a positive way, inspirational way, hopefully, creating a balance of doing good to your staff and also being a responsible citizen.
Yeah.
So yes, I very much hope you'll join us on that journey, and we'll create another stream sometime soon with better technology, even better sound, because I hope the sound was fairly reasonable, but actually also a good picture. And because I'll learn that skill of video streaming. So thanks so much, Brett, for coming.
No, thank you. It's only a pleasure, and I hope to be on and to participate at some stage in the future and give whatever insight I can and to the industry. Thank you very much for that opportunity, cool. Randolph.
Thank you.
Okay, cheers.
Ciao.